discussion. I thank all of the committee for their engagement in that process. So bringing the item back before us, we have a resolution which you've got before us. Just have a look at that, Maria. I know you've been out of the room. You're happy? All right. Well, I will move the resolution and seconded by Maria. Is there any discussion? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those, there is. Yeah, it's intended, yes. So there being no further discussion, I'll put the resolution. All in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Marley, for your input. We'll now turn and to Dave. Thank you. Please make that happen. And we'll now go to Tracy to introduce the next item.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and good morning, committee members, and also to our Chair, Pamela, and also Strange. What I just did want to do before we jumped into the matters on the agenda is just make reference to, sorry, Geordie, next slide. Just to frame up the agenda, all these papers were written and with you last week, well, I think before last week, and midway through last week we had a ministerial announcement by Minister Bishop at the local government conference following on from Prime Minister Lutzen. What I just wanted to highlight was a number of matters for the committee. For those who aren't aware, there is a press release on the Beehive site. There is also, and I've got copies here, of a Ministry for the Environment fact sheet about it. So what the Minister announced is that there is what it was termed was a pause on plan making. So any plans that were going through the process that hadn't been notified or hadn't progressed to a hearing would be paused. Now, I think that's for me, I think that's a really useful signal from the government, having just gone through the submissions to the 4 pieces of national direction that our council will debate on Wednesday at the council meeting, knowing that we've also got the RM reforms coming later in the year. It is not smart to be notifying plans when you have to redo them. So I think the direction from the government is good. What it is, though, it is a ministerial press release. It is not the legislation, and that is super important. So at the moment we are just shadow boxing around what might be in it until we see the legislation. We had previously signalled to our councillors, you know, we've been keeping abreast of it, as I know your staff very much have as well, what's coming out of Wellington. And we had already signalled to councillors that in August, across our entire policy program, not just freshwater, we would be coming back with so what does this mean? Both short-term and medium term, and also update our communications, not only for our own selves and our own councillors, but all our stakeholders involved. So at the moment, Councillor Smith asked what advice I could provide to the committee. I said the only advice I can confidently say is that there will be change. We don't know what that change will be. But for me, the partnership and the structure that we've got through Te Rōpū Hautu and through this committee means that we can have conversations as early as possible. Now, Te Rōpū Hautu informally met a couple of weeks ago, and we kind of said, look, we're starting to do some preliminary thinking, and it was nothing more than preliminary thinking. So I think hopefully we understand that the government's looking to pass the legislation in August. There are exemptions in the legislation, and one of those exemptions does make specific reference to exemptions, work that is important to deliver on the government's priorities, such as housing growth, urban development, or upholding treaty settlement obligations. So we'll wait to see what's in the legislation to see what is involved in that. and also the process for exemptions, because I suspect those will need to go through a process through council, through decisions of council. So just wanted to say all the reports were written before the announcement. There are pieces of work in this fact sheet is quite clear that it says what won't stop, work that councils do before notifying a change. So it acknowledges that there are work and conversation that needs to happen. We're also mindful that if the legislation comes out and says you have to notify a plan within 12 months of a new notification date, we know it doesn't take 12 months to have the conversations we need to have. So I just wanted to preface that before we jumped into agenda items. So happy to take any questions, but also very happy to jump to the next agenda item.
Did you have a question, Jackie?
Kia ora, Tracy. It's probably a question to the councillors more than anything, just around the flavour within the council about continuing with mahi like this in light of those sorts of announcements.
I can only speak for myself, but at this stage, my background was as a police officer and then as a registrar of a court and sitting on the bench as a judicial JP. My life's been in and around the law, and I am a person who complies with the law as well as I can do. So the current law says that we do certain things until the law is changed. We should continue, albeit perhaps a little bit slower at the moment, until we get clarity from the government direction. So I'm happy to continue doing what we need to do, because as I said in my opening comments, I think everyone's aspirations in this room is that we have clean, healthy water to sustain our communities and life going forward. So our food, everything relies on water. So to me, whatever the government comes up with change, the basics will be the same. So that's my personal view, not that of the council necessarily, but I hope it is. Robbie, Michael, Stu, Tipper, do you want to make any comments? Tipper.
Yeah, just that we're going on, sorry, talking to your engagement paper, eh?
We haven't got there yet,
Okay.
sorry.
You're just framing it up.
Yeah,
Framing it up. Probably, I just want to say that when uncertainty things, it can't be an excuse to opt out. Just because there's policy uncertainty in Wellington, we've got to stay a path of things that we know are true here in the Waikato. And because this organisation is politically linked elsewhere, you're going to have to stay the path on the settlement. I know I'm not trying to tell you how to suck eggs, but because you can hold us to that. They're asking for, if we lose that discipline, get up here under that premise of we both hold the same to vision and strategy, then if it's not clear to you or obvious, then perhaps you could ask us to be clearer. But again, we can't read tea leaves that aren't being cast yet. So kia ora, Tracy. Sorry, I was going to dive into your engagement.
Look, my comment's probably applicable to a few of the next agenda items, Tracy, but it's more about, it kind of feels to me, and this is just a personal view, that PC1 is going to be the guiding document in terms of affecting change on farm in the catchment in the next decade or so, because I just can't see the current government creating rules that are more stringent somehow. But nonetheless, I just want us to be cognizant, which I understand you are, that any mahi we do, and there's quite a lot in these next few papers, is going to be useful and applicable in the event that there is a backtrack from the government, if it makes sense. Because at the end of the day, I just want as many resources as we can to be applied to affecting change on the ground, because that's where our biggest challenge is. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to comment? No, Tracy.
Yeah, thank you, Co-Chair. I just want to give people confidence that, one, we're not opting out, and two, we're being very mindful of ratepayer investment. And that's a dance that we've been doing since last year when our councillors asked us the question, and we brought a very comprehensive report before council in June last year. I guess it is important that we see Plan Change 1 through to its implementation, and I think make sure that that implementation is as easy as possible for the people who have to implement it. And at the moment, with the layers of what's coming out of Wellington, we just need to move some of that white noise aside and focus on what is actually, as we talked about prior to the meeting beginning, it's a decade in since we started. It'd be good to get some runs on the board and to work with those landowners. So making sure we are focusing our priorities in the right space, as well as fulfilling our legislative requirements. Hopefully at the next meeting of the committee, we'll have all the bits of the jigsaw to at least give a first flush of where we're going. The papers that are before you in terms of engagement, mātauranga, the issues around farming and land use and water allocation and the economics, all that stuff will still need to occur anyway. That is not a 5-minute conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for that. So that sort of the next few papers are prefaced on what's just been discussed. So do we now take it that we go to Jackie or yes, thanks Jackie.
Oh, kia ora koutou. I just have one slide today. Excuse me. And I will take it that everyone's read the report in the agenda. Basically, it's just a brief update where we are in terms of engagement. So engagement, we've got three work streams, tangata whenua, sector and community. And quite briefly, the overall approach in terms of engagement is in response to River Iwi feedback, so working together and how that's designed. We do have a tangata whenua engagement lead, and I think many of you have met Angus, who's online currently, and he's working through some co-designed approaches, and he's quite busy in that respect. Now, in terms of sector engagement, and we've paused in terms of what you've heard this morning, and there's other papers to come that I'm sure you've read too in terms of PC1 and national direction. But in terms of the technical advisory groups, we have put that on hold. But we do have a science-based group of experts that we are currently proceeding with. And Mike Scarsbrook has more information if you're interested or have any queries on that. Community engagement really is not until next year, until after sector engagement. So once again, that will resume once we are much more clear on what that national direction is looking like. And that engagement will focus on, feedback on proposed policy tools and interventions. So for the policy team to work through that in terms of engagement, and that's really a brief update that I have for you today. It does sound like we do have questions from the floor.
So thank you for that, and thank you to Tracy for passing on the message that less slides is more. So thank you very much for crunching that down. Questions from the members, please. I'm sorry, I'm using first names. Do you mind rather than trustee this and
that's my name.
councillor?
It's what most people use.
Approaches. I agree. Thank you.
Hi, kia ora. Thank you, Jackie. That's and Tracy also for your kōrero. Mine is just around the engagement around the co-designing. So even though and we've been talking about process, correct process, right? That's kind of that foundation, and that in comms I think are incredibly important in ensuring that we're working as a collective. And while we meet as a collective here within Waiora, the committee, as in we're meeting as a collective, the co-designing should still reflect individual iwi. And I want to be ensured, and this is a little bit around, because we have different ways of doing things. That's all. It's not because we like to be difficult or anything. It's just that it's that mātauranga Māori that we want to carry on into that protection of not only our waterways, but also our mahinga kai, our natural food resources. There's a whole lot of things, it's that holistic view of our resources, and it's really important. So I'm just emphasising the fact, and we haven't heard from Angus Gray, and I'd hate to see the co-designing getting to a certain stage before there's a kōrero with iwi. I have been assured from our last hui, which didn't happen, but we did stay and have a little bit of a discussion, that some of those discussions have started, but we are yet to have them, as in we, Te Arawa River Iwi Trust. So I would like to, Angus, I understand that Angus is online, and kia ora, thank you. Just checking in to see where we are at with that co-designing, or are we still very much in that infancy stage?
Angus, you there?
Yes, kia ora koutou. Yep, so for the engagement, I guess our first step was to have a kōrero with each of the River Iwi liaisons who were identified in the guidance provided. So for Te Arawa, we've had that initial chat with Joe, and we've had that with each of the River Iwi. That first kōrero was to understand what are the expectations of each of the River Iwi. And I agree, like you say, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Each iwi has its different needs and different groups, different preferred methods, etc. So the first kōrero was to get a handle on what are those expectations. And for Te Arawa River Iwi, it was kōrero with the affiliates might not happen collectively. So having separated conversations. So that was kind of the first port of call, was to get that feedback. I've taken that advice back to the project team and just got a handle on what are the expectations of all of our River Iwi partners, because they're all different. Some are online, some are in person, some is a mixture. So that was kind of the first port of call. All River Iwi have asked for a high level program to be kind of provided, to then work together on how can we kind of tailor that program to each of the River Iwi's needs. So I've sent that program to Joe last week. So that's a high level program of how we think we could group the various topics, how we might engage on them. And that's for Joe, and she'll probably forward that to you to then let council know how that can be kind of tailored for each of the River Iwi. So that's a bit of an update. So it's still in progress, but yeah, we're keen to keep that going. For the topics as well, noting there's change pending. We've just kind of, I think Tracy used a boxing metaphor about shadow boxing. I kind of agree with that. We're kind of rolling with the punches with what comes. All of the topics are still there to be talked about, noting that some will likely be subject to change. Kia ora.
Thank you. Just before I go to Tippo, Angus, can I put a question to you? As a councillor, how do I keep abreast of your engagement with iwi? And the first thing, and to avoid the first thing that I know about it is a report that comes before me in this committee, because one of the gaps, and I'm probably being critical of our own council here, and this is my own personal view, is that council or councillors are the last to find out what's going on at times, and we're not taken on the journey from the start. And so I would certainly like, as a member of this committee, to understand the likes of what's been engaged, what's being fed back, not to interfere, but to actually be taken on the journey, so that I don't have to ask questions here. And it's something that if I'm, and I don't want to politic, but if I'm here around the table, I want some changes next time if we can.
So,
but anyway, the issue is, how do we keep councillors abreast of what's going on?
So it's probably best that that's directed at me, as
Right.
opposed to Angus.
All right.
So the stage that we're at is exactly as Trustee Forrest said. We are at that very preliminary stage of actually understanding. We've got some great information through from Te Rōpū Hautu and some of the topics, and that topics that we are wanting to have a conversation about, and we've fed that back to council last year, and also made council aware of other consultation feedback that we had. So we have had that before council. In terms of going forward, it really is the exploratory and discovery work that Angus is doing at the moment, and wrapping that up into a package around this is what things will look like going forward. There are a number of conversations to be had in that space, and then once we've got all that, we will bring it back to council, whoever the council may be. If it's before the end of September, it'll be this council. If it's post-September, it'll be our new council. So it's always intended to make sure that councillors are aware of that, and also just as we do with anything, make councillors aware of what hui might be going on out and about in their constituency. As you say, co-chair, to make you aware, not necessarily to have you in attendance at everything, but that they are aware. We're not at that stage yet. We're just doing that discovery, that exploratory, what is it going to look like?
Thank you. Tipa?
Tracy, you can tell me if this is helpful or not, but I was just wondering if this many years in, rather than, would it be more useful with River Iwi, because they're not going to change in terms of the entities they belong to have a protocol for how we're doing all of this stuff rather than the detail? Because then they can be assured that this is the approach by our council, whether it's Te Ropu Hautu, Te Tira Mātauranga, Mātauranga Māori, and that we be quite explicit on that. So you're never wondering how your matters are being addressed with, because in 10 years we haven't done that with you. You've relied on each engagement to try and normalise our processes. So that's one question. And two, I note that even if you did that, there's everybody else on this page that doesn't have that, and this is where we get unstuck. As people can see quite clearly, to your point, Mr. Chair, what's happening in terms of iwi engagement, but they don't know where the sector and community engagement is at. Therefore, it's in a zero-sum game, iwi are somehow getting more of nothing, of information generally, of no decision-making power, but by knowing, or being in the privilege of knowing, they're somehow more advantaged than the rest of the community. And we need to figure that one out, because in PC1 we had all the different groups, that everybody was in the knowing, and they couldn't pick on iwi for knowing something ahead of time. Under this current scenario, I worry that it's very clear to see when iwi will know, but it's not so clear to know when the sector will know or the community. And I know that's not your intention, but this is inevitably where this is how we got to here right now. People think they're missing out on something by iwi being included in the room. So put that question back to your experience and your team, but appreciate the paper again, Jackie, and that you've taken us from PC1 to now. Gives me a great heart, because you know who all the people are. Kia ora.
Just if I can respond to those two questions. So in terms of the first question, normalising the process, in terms of our river settlement iwi, that's exactly what we're going through at the moment. Based off the learnings of Plan Change 1, getting it right from the start, and we've spent some good time getting some good direction from our Te Ropu Hautu members around expectations, what it looks like and how it should happen. So that's great. In terms of the second, and so that's really what Angus is doing the work to respond to that process. Collectively and individually, that's something that we've had that message. In terms of the sector and iwi, a perception that iwi perhaps are getting something that others are not. We've done 2 rounds of sector engagement. Now, some of the sectors were very thankful for that. Some wanted more. It doesn't stop any sector ringing us at any time. And that when we undertook that sector engagement, iwi, River Iwi particularly, had not jumped into the engagement to the detail that the sectors had, because there were other priorities at the time. So essentially the conversations we are having now are exactly the same as the conversations that we had with sectors, and that we did those intensive processes with the sectors and run the hui. So it is essentially the same information. It is in fact 12 to 16 months later. One thing we also heard from the sectors, and this came through long and strong, is the government's changing a lot of things. We don't want to have conversations with you at the moment until we have clarity. Come back and see us then. So we've taken that on board.
Thank you. Robbie, and then...
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think what Tracy has indicated there is clarified what type of question, because myself and you, Mr. Chair, went to several sector meetings, and I until then I didn't realise that iwi had no engagement basically, and so yeah, that clarifies that what was going on. And I remember you saying that iwi's having difficulty getting to the table at that. I remember you mentioning that about 16, 18 months ago. So yeah, definitely we need to start that process of discussing that with iwi and getting their views around that discussion, because sector, they were quite robust discussions that sector was having, and the community ones, I went to several down in Hauraki Plains and in Te Araha, and they were robust discussions, and there was some local representatives from Hauraki that would turn up to those meetings, and most probably in some ways they were voicing an opinion, but it wasn't helpful because it was getting confused in the discussion as well of what was going on in those meetings, because they weren't getting the chance of having their voices heard at that table either. So you having your voice is actually helpful, because then it's not getting confused with other discussions going on, because that felt very confusing over the Hauraki side. Meetings were, argy-bargy, because I know where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Maria.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. I think Tipper raises a really good point, and accept all the explanation that has gone on here today, but holding that tension right is going to have to be really, really important. So I think that's the first thing I'd say. And if I may, Co-Chair, just through Billy to our awesome River Iwi managers, the thing that's on my mind is the time consumption of our people into something that will take every inch of time that they have to offer. And so, again, tension in there, and just want to pressure, not now, not looking for a response, but I guess asking us to just pressure test, have we got that time commitment of our people right? Not too much, not too little.
Can I just add that through the chair, Noel? Thank you, Jackie. And to our for our team. My whakaaro is really how we can use this as an opportunity going forwards and collectivise our thinking. And I say this in reflection to Te Hau Makuru, which is a series where Waikato Tainui now are reflecting on the last 30 years of their settlement. Land change one will be a historic land change in itself. What I would like to see is how we capture the information, and not just on paper. That when we're talking about mātauranga and kōrero te iho, that we have those, we capture, whether it's through a documentary style, because that is the opportunity in regards to ensuring that those kaitiaki that provide their input, doesn't matter, or whoever it is, but in a way that we can reflect that if we need to. What was being said, who was saying it at the time, because context matters, right? And our context will change over time. But I think it's an opportunity rather than, an added burden, that we look at trying to capturing the kōrero, that we can all look back on and what's been said, who was saying it, and the context around that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think something just crossed my mind is the relationship needs to continue at an even keel, and somehow we've got to get through this 3-yearly cycle of building relationships. Elections come, and then it's establishing. It can't be helpful to iwi, I would suspect, but council needs to be better at continuing the relationship and picking up where the last council left off immediately. And so, it's relationships. We all know that people we know, we're familiar with them and how we can move forward. Strangers, you've got to go through the dance and get to understand. So it was just something that crossed my mind, and probably I'm talking out loud, but anyway. Is there any further questions of Tracy or Jackie? In that case, we have a resolution on page 22. Someone moved that we, thank you, Jackie and Gannon. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. All right, then we have the next one on page 27, Mataranga Maori, in the freshwater policy review. And I'm just going to get a bit.
Awesome. Welcome to the table, gentlemen. We'll hand the time over to you. Please take the paper as read. We're looking for you to any top notes you want to raise with us.
Good morning, everyone. Oliver McLeod, scientist Mātauranga Māori here at Council. Describing in 3 slides the Mātauranga Māori work stream. The overarching goal here is to integrate those Māori values and ways of knowing into all freshwater policy through the plan, through the statement, aligning it with the MPS FM. So the approach that's being proposed is a dual model of monitoring where we have a sort of BAU freshwater science monitoring methods and then Mātauranga Māori based monitoring. And the Mātauranga Māori based measures reflect taonga health states of the wai, and we'll go into that soon. And it's also a key point that tangata whenua are central to choosing the sites and the nature of the methods that are adopted for that style of monitoring. The next slide. So primarily through the Ngāti Mātauranga forum, 3 freshwater values have been honed in on. Mahinga Kai, which is listed as compulsory in the MPS-FM. Waiti Wai Māori, which is essentially a water quality narrative attribute state, a spectrum of water quality, and then Tauranga Waka, which relates to launching navigability sites for waka from a traditional perspective. And so co-development through the NTM, Ngāti Mātauranga, and the iwi environmental management plans, we're now looking at the attributes and the outcomes. And just as a very brief note, so for instance, Mahinga Kai, we're looking at Koda and tuna population, watercress, Waiti Wai Māori, there are a number of attribute states which have been proposed. Okay, next slide. So the challenges will centre around resourcing. So if we have iwi doing monitoring, how do we resource that across the region? Another point which links to some of the earlier kōrero is around we're dealing with locally specific knowledge about waterways. How do we balance the regional nature of this monitoring approach with the localised nature of the mātauranga that's being applied? And then once that environmental data is starting to be produced by iwi, aspects of data sovereignty, how do we deal with that data in a council context, particularly around reporting? So next steps, continuing engagement, primarily through the Ngāti Mātauranga, finalising the policy options, which will enable these monitoring approaches to come in, aligning with statutory obligations through the policy statement and the plan, and then eventually embedding this dual knowledge-based monitoring approach into the plan and the statement. Okay.
E aku tauranga tira mā tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou. e tautoko ana ngā kōrero ko kōrero here. I just support what Oliver has just explained. I've been involved in this from the beginning, and the point of the exercise is to ensure that Māori values and mātauranga Māori sits alongside science through our freshwater program.
Any questions?
Korua, thank you for your korero. Just around that, I haven't really got anything, but I didn't want mātauranga Māori, the kaupapa to go without actually saying something. And that is in the sense around, totally agree. These things can be quite under-resourced. And when I say under-resourced, I mean that coming from the Crown, right? There's a whole lot of changes that have to be implemented, and there's an expectation on council that you implement them, but you don't always get the resource that it takes to implement them. So I'm really well aware of those challenges. There's a number of issues that we face within the Waikato River, and one of the latest ones being the clams. And how do we further protect? And you look at the resourcing that has been given, or MPI have given around managing the clams, and really that's one of our takias to say take us seriously, because we can see where the clams are, or the health and the well-being of the Waikato River is, with the amount of resource that you're not putting into this issue that can actually impact infrastructure and water takes hugely. We're going to end up with a massive issue. So I guess what I'm trying to say as well is around collectivising our approach. There's a whole lot of monitoring that needs to go on, and iwi are at the forefront often of ensuring that our taonga tuku iho, our resource that is handed down, that we've been looking after generation after generation after generation, has a voice and is heard. And that really is incredibly important to us, that we now look at how do we, I suppose, try and streamline a number of the work that we actually have to do, so that it's not continually putting pressure on everyone, including iwi, who want to be part of that solution. As I said, I haven't really, but it's really that explanation around where we come from. The position often that iwi will come from. We're often the first ones to put up our hands and say, look, we're sick of this footballing stuff. Let's just get out there and have a look and see what we can do and actually assess. And then what does it look like? How do we navigate our way forward? So for me, that collective approach, where can we streamline a lot of our work? It might be a combination of what regional council, what your water monitoring looks like, but also there's some other bits and pieces that MPI or NIWA or somebody else might need to collect. How do we then get on that bandwagon and try and pull things in? One of my things, and I know this is probably completely off the kaupapa, but it's not, and that is around user pays. And around what does that look like when we're looking at resource consents and things like that, around new takes, things like that. Where is that responsibility, and some of the work that we have to do, that we have to pay for, actually putting it back on new people who are coming on board. The reality is, and I am drumming home the potential issues or the enormity of the golden clams and what that is going to look like on infrastructure. Yeah.
That's an issue that's continually raised within the ICM Integrated Catchment Management Committee. Robbie is the chair and I'm the deputy chair of that, and it's regularly the biosecurity issues come under that committee, and we are regularly seeking information on that. And the council has invested heavily in ensuring it's not the author of the transportation of the beast. So yeah, we're taking it seriously within council. So understand where you're coming from. Thank you.
Kia ora, just a question for clarification. With regards to the overall governance of Mātauranga Māori, the way we're interacting with it, woefully underqualified as council. So who is doing that for iwi? Is that Ngātira Mātauranga? Who is
Yeah,
keeping
correct.
the data?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why? And do we have a protocol for that? Again, I'm asking for only because we're 10 years in and we shouldn't have to look through council minutes and different policy bits and pieces to figure out what our position on some of these. So I would have thought for Mātauranga Māori, there should be an enabling protocol or framework that iwi have signed up to, and they generally know what's being done on their behalf in this realm, even though I know they've delegated it to an officer in Tūtera. But again, the rangatiratanga of that generally sits back with somewhere in their mandates. Although I understand there's individual knowledge holders that will join the process. So just wondering if we can get more formality, so it's less of an update and more of a, you have this protocol for Mātauranga Māori with River Iwi over these sets of things. Anything else will be anew, but anything regards to this, I think we should be able to put a piece of paper. Kia ora.
Can you take that on board, Tracy?
Yeah, definitely, Councillor Mahuta. I'm just looking at Tūtahanga because he is leading a piece of work on data sovereignty around Mātauranga Māori in conjunction with Oliver and a team across the organisation. We're 10 years in, but it's a conversation, as you would appreciate, takes longer. It's not a 5-minute conversation. We need to get it right. We've got our statutory requirements, but also that need to respect Mātauranga Māori. But Tūtanga is leading that piece of
and I'm
work,
just saying
yeah.
too, and now on the iwi side of the table, that we have much more robust leaders of Mātauranga Māori who are able to enter that conversation with him, but that we should expect a new outcome rather than policy updates, because it gives, I guess, it creates a more solid vehicle going forward for protection and preservation of Mātauranga Māori. Kia ora.
So maybe we'll just note that as an action for our next tweet to follow up on and see where we get to. Jack, sorry.
Thank you for the report. I just really wanted to tautoko Tipa's comments around getting some more formality around the processes and systems that we're establishing for this mahi, and also wanting to make sure that they build on other mahi that's happening or has happened through PC1, and the different projects that we're all working on. I think that's probably something that you need to talk to our teams about, how to best do that. But it would be a shame to not come up with a system that captures things that can be accessed into the future, not just for this, but for all the different mahi that we do. So just wanted to tautoko Tipa's suggestion and just make sure that we're going to use the benefit of all the other kōrero that's happening through other big mahi that many of us are involved in for this and future plan changes.
Awesome. Any other questions? Okay, well, we've got a resolution on page 28. Can I get a mover? Thanks, Gab. That's it down, Nat. All in favour?
Aye.
Any against?
All right, thank you. Next item on the is the introduction to freshwater policy review. Mr. Scarsbrook, I see you're back from your sunny holiday.
Through you, co-chairs, whoever's presenting this, Bruce, Naomi, somebody, before they come to the table, just did want to say that, look, this paper is by no means a comprehensive approach to these two fundamental topics for the freshwater plan review. This is information that our councillors have had probably 12 to 18 months ago. They are the two most significant topics that we know we will have to grapple with. It is an introduction. We have one slide a piece on each of these topics, which we know is merely the very tip of the iceberg of them. But it was to just say, here is the start. Here are the two biggest topics that we will have to have some of those, as Councillor Cookson said, challenging conversations across multi-sectors. And it was just an introduction in the papers. I just wanted to preface that in case members said one slide each, come on. It was.
Yeah, no, there was some pressure from Maria and I that we said we don't want 80 odd slides. We want to have, these papers have been read. And
these topics will be followed up in fine detail in the years to come.
Years to come, yes. Thank you.
Kia ora, morning. This bit of work has actually been led by Angela Fenimore, who's a contractor working for us. Her and Naomi have been working and wrote the paper with our staff, and they're the ones that prepared the slides. So if it's all right, Angela has done the work.
Yep.
And we'll hand over to her briefly to.
Is she online?
Yeah, morena koutou. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Kia ora. So I'm just going to highlight some of those key points from that policy report. Like Tracy says, these are the two of the most complex and large topics for the policy review project. And mindful that we are going to be providing additional updates as we do more work in this area. So for the farming land use part of the report, we firstly talk about those provisions that might apply in the Waikato Waipa catchments, the PC1 area, and then we talk about everywhere else in the region. So for the Waikato Waipa catchments, we are looking at largely retaining those existing PC1 provisions, but we will need to review those once a final court decision is available and once we've got any updated national direction documents that have been released. Also aware that there is that ongoing review for Te Tere Whaimana and the vision and strategy, and so once that's being prepared, we'll also be doing a review against that. For the remaining freshwater management units, primarily the Hauraki, West Coast and Coromandel FMUs, we are looking at using the PC1 provisions as our starting point, and that includes the use of farm environment plans for all farms, the adoption of sort of good management practices or minimum farming standards, and enhanced stock exclusion requirements. So really similar to what's being discussed for Plan Change 1, with those additional exclusions of stock and those more sensitive catchments. And to address those differences in water quality challenges across different catchments in the region, we are looking at adopting a sub-catchment approach that's sort of just categorising areas by those key issues of concern, like nitrogen or sediment or overflow contaminants. And then looking at targeted rules and sort of farm environment plan requirements, just those will depend on the level of risk or the catchment type. And looking at that, some of those rules, depending on catchment risk, we might need to look at land use or limiting land use intensification. Next slide, please. Then moving on to water quantity. Firstly, just wanted to acknowledge that there are still those unresolved Māori rights and interests in relation to freshwater, and we do recognise that it does need to be resolved through the Crown. But so while there are some current limitations to what we can achieve under our current legislative framework, we're really committed to having that ongoing conversation with iwi to understand how we best provide for tangata whenua values and mātauranga and water allocation. So our current work program for water quantity and does include a review of those existing flow and allocation frameworks, including both surface water and groundwater limits, particularly looking at how we might need to review those flow settings for the Waikato Waipa rivers. We're also looking at how we best manage some more of those technical aspects of of groundwater management and how that's connected to surface water, so that hydraulic connection, along with some other technical work around the effects of abstracting water. We've also started some initial conversations with Horizons Regional Council on the Tongariro Power Scheme. At this stage, that engagement is primarily focused on information sharing. We have that meeting twice a year on that, and potentially arranging a site visit. As Tracy said, there are going to be ongoing updates on these two topics in particular, recognising that they are really detailed and complex, and we need to share information as it comes to hand.
Tracy.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight for the committee that last bullet point. We are very mindful of the direction that we got at the last meeting with respect to the conversations around Tongariro, Tukanu and Tuwharetoa's relationship with those operators. These are our, as Angela said, our 6 monthly meetings that we have and have always had with Horizons Regional Council. And the operators have extended to singular staff members a site visit just so they can be familiar for those who aren't. We're nowhere near having any conversations about policy at the moment. It's just for new staff members to actually understand some of the infrastructure that they're unaware of. I just wanted to make that point because it was a very clear point that we picked up from the last committee.
Thank you. Can I get you to go back to the previous slide, please? Now, I'm going to preface this on the basis that 45 years ago, we farm on the Waiora River, and I fenced the river, and I fenced the Wangaheka stream that flows through our place, so our stock cannot get into the waterways. So having said that, I'm asking where staff get the mandate for enhanced stock exclusion measures, because and why I preface it is that I've already done it and I think it's the right thing to do. But where does council staff get its mandate to do all this? Because as a councillor, I haven't seen it. So a staff going off, and I don't want to say on a tangent of their own, but where's the mandate to do this? I know PC1's there, and if PC1's in place, I think everybody should be on a similar platform, but just so that I understand where's the mandate for staff to do this, and I could possibly take this offline, but I just want to know that, like I made a comment to Maria the other day when we first met. I don't want this committee to turn into what the JMAs, in my personal opinion, is. We go to the JMAs, and I'm an alternate for Waikato Tainui, and I listen because council does a lot of telling, and there's not a lot of coming back the other way, because the forum seems to be we tell iwi a hell of a lot, but it doesn't seem to be. My personal thing here is it's not a partnership, and this committee is, some of our discussion earlier, our honest discussion was about taking it forward together, and so to have information coming in, like we're just going to receive reports today, it's all been done, and we're just being informed of what's going on, what might happen, what has happened. There's no decision, and okay, it might be too early in the process, but so that's only an example of the stock exclusion rules. But where are we getting? How will we get to? Maybe it's not the subject, but it's something that I want to know before the end of this meeting. How will the governors around the table make this committee effective to guide the direction rather than coming from a technical group and telling us what we should just rubber stamp? And maybe that's been unfair, but.
Yeah, so if I can just take this one also. So this is the first official meeting of this group. So we are not looking for any decisions on anything, but we are wanting to bring the committee up to speed with the work that's gone on. All of those matters there are matters that we've taken to council workshops. They are nothing more than context and options at this stage that staff have explored. We're not starting from zero. We have Plan Change 1. We also have a decade of knowledge of not only regional sector work in this space, but the work of iwi and iwi environmental management plans. So what Angela's presenting here is your suite, your buffet of tools that you've got at your disposal. Staff are forming up some of these. We're not running ahead and championing any of them, but we are forming up the options based on the conversations we've had, both with sectors through Plan Change 1 and also from feedback in the conversations with sectors to date. What we're doing here is saying, here is some of the work, we're doing some of the work in these spaces. For each of these bullet points, there's probably another 5 to 10 things at the buffet that we can choose from. The work will be done by this committee, I would say, in probably a year to 2 years' time, where we have the workshops, where we look at what's come through, where we put it all in the big mixer and kind of go, so what does it mean? What we're doing here is saying there's a suite of things we're looking at. These are the things that have bubbled to the top from Plan Change 1. We're not starting from zero. This is what we're looking at. We are looking at enhanced stock exclusion measures. Many sectors have said, look at those. The trick is what does enhance mean as a rule in a plan? Those are the conversations we sure as eggs aren't ready to have right now at this first meeting of the committee. I understand what you're saying. The options will be brought through to Rōpū and through to the committee as well.
I'd just like that, and I'm not, this isn't a thing for this committee, but after going around and seeing agriculture and all different uses around the Waikato, I think that should be changed from stock exclusion to, so I had the word on the top of my tongue and now I've dropped it, but it should be mitigation, because it's not about stock, it's about vegetable growing, it's about maize production. We were in a place the other day and here's a guy planting directly next to a board drain with his maize crop. So, you know, I think the word stock exclusion isn't fair to put in there. It is actually mitigation of setbacks. Yeah, exactly. That's a better word to use in that space, because that's just preloaded that you're having a go at agricultural farmers or sorry, dairy or sheep and beef guys. You're not. It's a whole catchment. It's everybody that works and manages in it. So it shouldn't just say stock exclusion. And but I agree with what you're saying, but I think don't preload the gun like that.
Yeah, and like these are examples. I accept that, Tracy. But yeah, we probably need to get better. But look, there's a lot of landowners that need to get on board as well.
If I can just respond, Coach, stock exclusion, it is something that has statutory requirements, and that's why we've hooked onto it. But I do understand, and you know, it's something that we learnt a lot through the engagement intensification. You can have good intensification if it's done right. So yeah, it is stock exclusion and it is setbacks for any activity that is undertaken.
So just on that point of setbacks and the like, so that the whole committee knows that the council did, certainly through ICM, ask that the staff look at bylaws similar to other regional councils, which has setbacks and rules around nearby waterways. At the moment, there's not a lot of teeth for council to utilise in relation in that space, where other councils that have bylaws are able to put the acid on landowners much more effectively. So that's for another day. But I'll leave it there, Maria.
And I think there's also one other point that the co-chair raised, and it's not for responding to today. And to your point, we've just started to warm our feet up around this committee, but a forward work plan so that the governors are really clear about what topics are coming back and where decisions are going to be made. I just wonder if people are travelling in the dark a bit about what does the work look like ahead. But that can come, Tracy.
Ideal, thank you. All right, is there any further questions on this? We have all that. So can I?
Just a comment. Thanks for the paper. It is they're both huge topics. I wonder if as part of the work program, we can have, like a day dedicated to each of these topics that include going out and having a look at what some of the issues are for those of us who aren't farmers. And I know that Aotearoa includes areas outside of the Waikato River catchment, so it'll be good to, I guess, just really do a bit of a focused wānanga on these topics, and not in a year or two's time.
It's scary when you say a year or two's time, because I wonder what we're doing in the meantime. So anyway, I know that good things take time. So thank you. Do we have a mover? Ellen, to move? Robbie, second. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. And so now we move to page, what, about 48, is it? No, 59. Thank you, page 59.
And through you, co-chair, whilst Femi's just coming to the table, this was a pivotal component of Plan Change 1. Those who are around the table who are around the Plan Change 1 table will realise how important the economic analysis was, and how important it was to understand that and begin that process as early in the piece, irrespective of whatever direction comes out of central government. What does that look like? Setting the foundation for the economic model is critical. The fact that it's a practical model, and I will reiterate the term model, it is not the silver bullet. You cannot put numbers in, get numbers out and go job done. It is such a critical piece of work to inform whatever direction we go. If we go back to the stock exclusion matter or the setbacks matter, what does that mean on farm? What does it look like? What does it cost? Femi is leading this project, so Femi will take you through. I think you've got one slide as well, Femi. 2 slides.
Got 3
3 slides, you're lucky. But again, this is an introduction. It is not comprehensive.
Thank you.
Here, Kato. Actually, it could be one slide, so I'll just highlight so one main topic for each of the slides. The first one is the analysis that we are doing. What are we doing? Traditionally, we used to do what they call modeling, and that's where you have different types of models to represent most of the issues that's happening on ground.
Can you pull your mic closer, please? Just pull it closer. You lift it up and lift it back. Pull the whole thing back. It moves. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. So what I was saying was I could make the 3 slides one slide actually, because what I have is one slide can talk to a topic, and the main topic for me here is the analysis what we are doing. So I was trying to make reference to the fact that we know that we usually use model when we are doing economic analysis for plan change review. But this time around, we are not going to be doing much of modeling in terms of what comes from different disciplines that relate to how the policy options might impact on the businesses and the environmental indicators we have. So, but however, we will start with the farm level, on-farm, farm systems activities. And so that's where we'll be doing a bit of modeling, and we are using consultants to help us with that. These are rural consultants, those who are working among the farmers and know what is happening out there. So to do that, we're going to do more of the case studies where we will take a typical case of what farming activities look like on the ground and what rules might mean for them in terms of what they need to do or what they have to stop doing. So to do this, we have a series of work stream. Next slide. Let's do this slide. And these are the work stream we have, but all of this contributes to making use of the farm level analysis, and then we aggregate that to sub-catchments and then catchments and then FMU and the whole region as a whole. And then we would then make sure that the information are presented in a way that Section 32 report can make use of it, what we're getting in terms of how effective are the policies that we're looking at, and the efficiency in terms of to what extent a move towards the target or achieving the outcomes. And then we look at using some of the work the council has been doing around freshwater ecosystem services to showcase the benefit of water quality policies. Yeah, that would be a kind of narration and summary of a series of technical reports that have looked at the values that people have for freshwater across the region. So in terms of timeline, we hope we could get the baseline ready by the end of 2025, by the end of this year. And then that moves us to the next slide, which is more about the considerations along the line as we're working. So we are aware that things are changing. So the first consideration is that we've made this approach to be iterative. And then we are more or less in between the science that is and the policy writers and those who are helping us with the farm systems analysis. So we are giving enough room for back and forth between these two disciplines. And we also understand that what we are doing actually is more about baseline information gathering. We are trying to capture the context, and these are things that we know we keep changing, and there are things that we could be doing along the process, the years that the plan change might take. So it can be business as usual for us, for our team. Waiora.
Thank you. Any questions, please? Sure.
Thank you. Just one question, and it's always there for me. Have you got a simple way of explaining how do you deal with the fact that there are some farmers out there that have pretty much done all the good stuff that they're supposed to be doing, and there's relatively little effort required on their part to get to where we want them? There's another bunch of farmers that have, and they all vary in terms of where they got to get to, and Robbie's smiling as well. How do you factor that into predicting what the costs are going to be? Because they're going to vary, and you know, some will argue that, hey, those guys should be sucking up a bit more costs because they should have been doing stuff in the past, you know.
Yeah, that's one of the topics that we've really talked about and we're still working on. But the default way we thought we will address that is just more about identify what the gaps are in terms of what is the policies requiring to be done, and how, who and where has much been done before, so that we do not count those as what needs to be done. So we're going to rely heavily on a spatial analysis through our GIS team. We're going to tell us this type of farms are already doing this, and we might not need to count for those. Yeah.
Yeah, to my mind, that's quite a challenge in terms of how we
Yes.
communicate that, so that the ones that have been doing what's expected of them aren't freaked out by the potential costs of, because it probably won't be applicable. No, thank you.
Jackie?
Kia ora. Just a couple of questions from me. The first was, what learnings are we taking from the PC1 process, and not being deeply involved in that, but I understand that the economic analysis was critiqued quite heavily during that process. So just wanting to make sure that we're learning from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gone through some of the aspect in terms of how court has used the economic analysis we did in PC1. One of the things that stood out for me was how they find it difficult that the information we used were about 10 years earlier than when the decision has been made. So in this time around, we're making sure that we're going to future-proof the information we are using. So it's going to be iterative in terms of fine-tuning the data. So as we get more information, or as the project get more delayed, we will update the information. Yeah.
I guess just building off of that answer, is there a large and defendable body of work that can be used or is going to be used to monetize the benefits of the proposed changes?
Not sure, but one of the things we're doing in the work stream was to take some technical report we have on another project, and this is a freshwater ecosystem services project. I'm involved in that project. What we've been doing over the past 10 years was to go out and sample some of our freshwaters and sample and assess what people value from them in terms of tourism, in terms of the Maori values there. So we're trying to summarize those information to kind of explain or narrate what it looks like, the benefits of looking after water.
Yeah, to you, Trustee Collier, we very much, as part of the implementation program for Plan Change 1, are thinking about that. You know, we have to measure the effectiveness and efficiency of the plan change. I think what we're doing at the moment, well, we're waiting for that clarity from the court, but we've also done an awful lot of work in that interim outside the court through our ICM directorate, through that investment on the ground. We back in 2018 implemented the additional monitoring sites in the main stem and some of those tributaries, and really trying to understand some of that work. I mean, we know it's not binary. You know, we know one of our challenges is actually how do we attribute back some of those benefits and to where we attribute them. And Femi had the pleasure and delight of being cross-examined at the Environment Court on the economics, so has really used some of those questions and some of those angles to inform the work going forward. We know that iwi have always said councils has those implementation responsibilities around is the plan change going to make the difference that we wanted it to in terms of those short-term and long-term objectives that it has. We are gathering the information, but we haven't actually kind of gone, here's the benefits wrapped up, here's what they mean, here's not only the yes, the financial and non-financial benefits, but that's a piece of work that we have to do.
I'd be really interested in that work stream going forward, and I guess what we can do to work with the likes of the university and others who might be leading in that space. I know that, you know, trying to quantify and monetize the environmental, cultural benefits of these types of policy changes is not very mature. And, you know, it would be a great opportunity through this mahi to really add to the practice area, I guess, not just nationally, but internationally.
Thank you. Gannon and then Robbie.
Yes, thank you, Femi. You may have just answered my question. I'm listening to one of your responses. Just in regards to the economic approach, is mātauranga Māori being used in regards to finding out what the outcome is?
No, I'm not aware of whether that has been incorporated.
Sorry, can't hear the.
I'm not aware whether they've used that in any form, but I'm aware that there is a work stream about Mātauranga Maori. Yeah. And I've been also asking that what ways do we need to incorporate that? So we thought that could come in form of scenario modeling. So we'll be looking at that at farm level. There's a possibility there. But
yeah, I think the importance for me really is to ensure that if you've got an extractive process which adds to degradation to the waterways, where Mātauranga will provide as more of a regenerative place to give it balance. And it's really about being able to tell that economic story that, you know, there's the way that they've approached it, the balanced way. Yeah. Would that be something that would be used, Femi, in the future?
I can push that through to our contractor who are helping with farm systems. It's a big contractor in Waikato region, so they have quite expansive knowledge about those kind of disciplines. Yeah, I might not be mainstream economics, so I'll keep pushing for that.
So is that a yes?
That's a yes. We will explore it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Robbie,
Okay.
Robbie, then Tipper. You don't have to.
Oh, yeah. As we all understand, we can put changes in place, and there's cost to that of making decisions of how to operate differently. It's it really comes down to quantifying what is the runoff coming off those catchments, because as we know, we're not going to get measurable numbers down in that water quality for maybe 10 years after making these changes. So all of the knowledge that we need out of that is actually the farm plans and what is the nutrient that's actually coming off those properties to justify the outcome that you're after, because otherwise you won't see it for maybe 10 or 20 years. But we want to know there is going to be change because we're farming to those practices. So I think that's where the detail comes from, is the information collected to make sure that we are getting to the right place. So thank you.
Professor, thank you for the report. And where we're up to right now, probably my question is, in the 10 years of the plan change, there would have been some first mover activity already. We moved because it was too hard or too costly. So we're down with those who are going to be stayers for the process. So I'm really excited about that. What I'm wanting to know is if by those big FMUs or big catchments, can we predict those moves now, right? And all the data that we have, so we can kind of see who the hard lean is affecting and who it isn't affecting. Because I could tell you without a word of a lie, in our lower catchment, the first movers have gone to solar, where it was viable. You know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, who are we really chasing? Who are these industry stragglers? Do they really exist? Or 10 years in, is it a different conversation from your reporting for me? Then you know what I mean? Because people have moved. If it was too hard to keep farming, they've moved out of it.
Yeah.
Or they've gone into an alternative area and into what are the insights that we should be looking at, just leading into what about what's the new gold that would be mine place. Is it water storage or the purposes? I'm not too sure, but I know 10 years ago we were definitely only talking about changes in farming, from farming to other kind of farming. Now I think we're changing totally, and we're giving you a broad guess. And but thanks, Kill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. There doesn't appear to be any further questions. So do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Stu. Thank you, Jackie. All in favour that we receive the report? Against? Carried. Thank you. Just checking at this stage, there's a couple of small items left and we're programmed to go through to 1 o'clock. Everyone happy to carry through to 1? I know you mentioned earlier that you needed to get away, but is that still the case? Or? Yeah, it's okay, right. So thank you for that. And we have, is it Lisette now? Thank you. Your hands, Lisette.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Lisette Balsam toku ingoa, for those I haven't met yet. So this item was just to provide some updates and context since the paper was written on resource management system reform. As you will be well aware, things are moving rapidly, and you will all be experiencing that pace of legislative and policy change. In particular, this system has been subject to a lot of change over the last number of governments and years. You'll probably be aware of the 3-phased approach that the current government is taking to RM reform, with phase 3 being the ultimate replacement of the Resource Management Act with those two acts there on the slide, the Planning Act and the Natural Environment Act. So we're currently in phase 2, where proposals to review national direction, including for fresh water, are being put forward, albeit in different states of readiness to implement. For Waikato Regional Council, the draft suggested submissions are going to our council meeting this Wednesday for consideration, and they've been a massive undertaking. The sheer number of documents to review and comment on all at once is making it difficult for everyone, which we acknowledge. Therefore, staff from Waikato Regional Council have had 2 online meetings with representatives on Te Ropuhotu, the River Authority, and others interested to support understanding of the many moving parts that are being reviewed and suggests where it might be best to put most effort towards without prescribing anything, as well as sharing what staff have put together so far or making available experts if useful. There are more specific impacts on the Regional Council's freshwater program, including because of last week's announcements to stop certain plan change processes, as I think Tracy will have mentioned already. And in terms of phase 3, we're awaiting those draft bills, which will have much more of the detail that we're looking for. For now, there are only general indications or media statements about the government direction, as noted in the report. So we're expecting the bills in the next couple of months, and we'll definitely look forward to continuing to work with our partners on our responses and sharing what we know and seeing how we can help. Kia ora.
Any questions? I just make an observation. I'm not sure if everyone have seen it, but those of us in the lower Waikato involved in the drainage and river base, we installed a new adapted McEwen's pump, fish friendly, at the Huntley Golf Course nearly 12 months ago, and where we used to mince up the tuna. It was an absolute, well, it was an eye-opener to me to see the pump, and they were capturing every thing that went through it, and large 1.2 metre tuna were being caught that had gone through the new impalas and the likes, and the Churchill East up north, some big, 10 metre long, 4 metre wide, 2 of them 2.4 metre wide Archimedes screws, just letting the fish go through, and it's been a real eye opener, and that's what council intends going forward to. When we upgrade the pumps, everything will be fish friendly. So because of the outstanding success we've had, so that's just a side issue, and there's photos available if anyone wants to see them. But questions, please.
Just one from me, Lisette. Thank you for that report, and we totally understand the amount of pressure coming from central government and the large volume of work. One area of encouragement from me is what I know to be true about central government is they don't understand treaty settlements. They don't understand what it looks and feels like between partners on the ground. So any extra voice, leverage, reminding that you can muster with central government would be greatly appreciated. So a gentle encouragement in that space, please.
No further, I'll move that the report be received. Seconded. Thank you, Evelyn. All in favour? Against? Carried. And our last report of the day, I believe, update on PC1. No one rushing to the table?
She surely is an exercise in persistence, but as I said, Pippa told me years ago, 150 years to get here. 10 years is a drop in that pail, and as long as we're going forward and not backwards.
I know we're near the end, but I think that I was a submitted process way back at the start. Yeah. Having declared that, move on.
Look, plan change 1 can. I keep thinking in my head, he piko he taniwha, because that is exactly what plan change 1 has been and continues to be for us. Bruce, what's the answer?
Wish I knew. Anyway, hello again. Yeah, you're well aware that we received the court's decision in late May. to meet the timeframes, worked very hard to meet the timeframes outlined in that decision. But what a few things that the decision did do was support PC's one alignment with the 35 mana. So that the approach that we've been taking in that respect. Quite a number of key findings in the decision, and it is 380 odd pages, quite hard to digest. But some of those were around the risk-based management of farming and CVP activities, that taking the risk-based approach is the right way to go. Reinstatement of stock exclusion up to 15 degrees. We did recommend a 10-degree slope in there. The board has reconfirmed a 15-degree slope, asking us to put in clear monitoring frameworks for the plan for PC1, including around the effectiveness of the rules for CVP and farming activities, and also wanting better recognition of tangata whenua ancestral land development rights, and bring in some requirements for council to do that in the revised plan. So yeah, as you're aware, there is have received one High Court appeal from Waiora Pastoral on challenging parts of Rule 311.9, which is a land use change rule, and a number of parties have now joined those proceedings, including the River Iwi have joined in. We do have a deadline to respond for the court of 25th of July. So what staff have done and our legal team have done, have prepared a document which is currently out with all the parties for response, and we're getting that to the court on time as planned, or we may seek a slight delay, but that's just to enable us to get in the responses from the other parties, make sure everyone's had a fair say at what's been proposed. So we are working very hard to get that done, and there's a team working on that as we speak. So that's my very quick update on what is a very long and complex decision and complex subject matter. Thank you.
From my time as a commissioner, I believe that the only thing that they can do is the appeal will be on a point of law as opposed to.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And so I think, as you said, we are involved in the is it 347 parties or whatever?
Whatever. Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. So,
but there's
so everyone in the room is probably up to date with that.
Yeah.
So questions for Bruce? The questions? Moved by Mikhail and seconded by, thank you, Evelyn. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So before we conclude, Madam Co-Chair, comments?
No, thank you everyone for your time. For those of us that are travelling, please travel safe home. And we will see you next time.
And I'd just like to say thank you before we close to everyone in the room for your participation, open and honest discussion, and let's move forward together. So
before we do that, I think there is some discussion at our end around the next meeting date, but maybe I will, who's the person who emails me at WRC? Oh, hi. I'll come find you and we will have a conversation about that. Cool.
Okay. All right. And on that date, I declare the meeting closed at 12:40 and thank you all for your attendance and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.